First of all, let me say, going over the English Channel, it was like looking down and seeing all the ships. It was almost like from shore to shore you could walk on board the ships. There were so many.
Must have been an impressive sight.
It was. It was very impressive. And I've heard it described as the biggest armada of men and material and ships that was ever assimilated for one endeavor of any war, and probably would be the biggest one in the future too, because we went to the atomic bomb, as you know,
yeah.
and that eliminated the need for heavy engagement, invasion forces. So anyway, we implaned about, say, 9:45, a little before 10 o'clock in the evening, and then we flew around out over the English Channel and formed up, so we were in the formation that they wanted.
Yeah, how prior, upon taking off, how much sooner before then had you got your orders and knew exactly what was going to happen, where you were going?
Well, while we were at the airport, we were at the airport 2 or 3 days, and they had sand tables laid out, and they showed us the topography of the area that we were going to jump in, and where we were committed to stopping the Germans from reinforcing down on the invasion beaches. And we were going to jump about 4 or 5 miles inland. And the way it worked out, we did. And when we first landed, a lot of the planes were detoured off their plan, and we were dropped, mixed up with other regiments from our division. Nobody in the stick I was in was in the same field I was. It was quite a mix-up. And
can you tell me a little bit about what your feelings were like on the plane ride over, and what your fellow soldiers were?
Well, the plane ride over, first I was awestruck at the number of ships underneath on the ocean going over, and I felt good about it, because I felt, well, they're putting a lot of effort into this, and so I'm sure we're going to have a good outcome. And let's see now. Well, anyway, if I can continue on.
Okay, sure, certainly.
Yeah, we parachuted down, and there was nobody around in the field I landed in, but I met 5 or 6 people, but none of them were from my regiment. As soon as I went to the edge of the field, which was encompassed by hedgerows, and a hedgerow, as I can describe it, is a built-up area with trees on the circumference instead of the rock formations that you see in New England. It was trees, and it was an obstacle even tanks couldn't get through too well. They tell me that some of our tank men, not necessarily airborne tanks, but regular tanks, they found when they got to the hedgerow country that if they put a pair of steel arms like forklift trucks, they could take out these trees a lot better than if they just tried to run over them. They'd get with their belly showing, and they'd be more vulnerable.
The weakest part of the tank is the belly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so we had these little clickers for a password. We were supposed to click them once, and of course you press it, you got to release it, so it ends up with 2 clicks, and the party that you're checking, for him to acknowledge the password, he has to give you 2 clicks back, and we used that. I understand some airborne didn't. I heard that after, that they didn't use them because they felt the Germans were wise to them. But I think it was a good password. And I remember when there were 5 or 6 of us joined, all from different regiments. We joined together, and if there was an officer or a non-com, he became the leader of the group. And I can remember men running down the road opposite a hedgerow, and they were definitely Germans. They were running in formation, and you could hear their boots strike the earth. And we didn't give them the 2 clicks at all because we didn't want to reveal our position to them, and we were just glad they ran on by. So then we went in about 4 hours before the seaborne troops went in, and about 4 hours after we started collecting the 6th, well, I got back with my regiment again, and we started on one of the towns that was on our list for cleansing it of the Germans, so to speak, and we found that let's see now. I'm sorry for this lapse I have.
That's fine, no problem. Yeah.
Anyway, I got wounded in this first town, and we'd gone down one side of the village. It was a little country town, and there was homes, and then there was right across the way was the barn and so forth. And we'd gone down the end of one street, and toward the center was fields, and I think the Germans were there. And I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And we were starting back from the end of the street, and I got shot through the left arm. It was an explosive bullet, which was outlawed by Geneva Convention rules, but somebody had used their spare time to file the tip of a bullet. I have the bullet here and 2 pieces of shrapnel that I get hit with later in Holland, and I'd like to show them to you.
Certainly.
Remind me, I'll have my wife get them out for you. They were in the picture that you read on page 3. I was holding them in the palm of my hand, and they took a picture of the hardware that I get hit with. So anyway...
What did that feel like? Was it, I mean, what's it feel like to be shot?
It felt like somebody had hit me with the side of a shovel. It knocked me down. But there wasn't a whole lot of pain because the shock of being hit and wounded
and the adrenaline,
compensates for the pain somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know what the explanation is, but I've always heard that sometimes when a fellow has a grievous wound, he doesn't feel as much pain as you'd think he would, because there's a certain amount of shock that sets in, and kind of takes care of the pain. So anyway, I motioned like this where I thought the shots were coming from, because after I fell, there was a wall on one side of me, and they put 2 more shots near my head, and it spattered against the wall. So I motioned like this to the 2 fellows I was with, in the direction the shots were coming from, and they stuck their rifles around the corner and just fired at random in that direction. And when they did, I got up and I ran to the cover of the nearest barn. The two fellows had gone behind. So then we went up the street, and we, at the head of the company street, the head of the town's main street, where we had set up company headquarters. It was kind of like behind the hedgerow. That's where the wounded was being taken, and as well as German wounded that were taken, and we waited for seaborne troops to come up to us to take us back to England. And the first one I saw, incidentally, was a black man. He was driving the truck that come up to take us back. And at that time, the blacks were relegated to mostly driving jobs and things like that.
Segregated from the rest of the army, weren't they?
They weren't in combat units.
Yeah.
But I appreciated what this fellow did.
Yeah.
Even though he only drove a truck and took me back. And one odd thing, when I was in the truck, they put me aside of this young German soldier, and his arm was hanging by shreds, and I went to hold his arm steady from the motion of the truck so he wouldn't be jostled too much. I thought it was a little bit incongruous because, you know, half hour earlier we're trying to kill each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I'm trying to help him.
Yeah.
But we became two human beings,
Right.
and both were too young to be doing what we were doing.
Exactly.
Because I had just turned 21 the week before. I parachuted into Normandy, and he was not even as old as myself. Oh, another thing, when I forgot to mention it, but when we were flying over looking for a drop zone, a lot of the planes were being shot down, and I saw at least one go down close to us, and I learned afterwards that the plane that I was supposed to have been on had moved at the last minute so I could be with my lieutenant and be his communication, being a radio operator. The other plane went down with everybody on board and nobody got out alive. And I had been bunkmates with these people for all the time we were in England, so that was tough to take, learning. I didn't know at the time that they were the ones shot down, but I learned after they were one of the planes that went down and nobody got out.
This is another button.
These are the two pieces of shrapnel, and I had them in my hand for the filming. These two pieces of the shrapnel that was in my body, the smaller one in my left knee and the larger piece broke my right shoulder, a clavicle bone. And this was the explosive bullet that they took out from my left armpit. And an interesting thing on any of these, if you were to look at it under a magnifying glass, you can still see the underwear I was wearing and the blood-stained clothing that was taken from
I'll be darned.
when it entered my body.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the interview,
I'm
and once
sorry.
again, thank you very much for your service.
I'm sorry I got a little emotional.
Yeah, but
You know, I think of these fellows that we lost.